Hello listeners, and welcome to Plugged In, the energy news podcast from Montel, where we bring the latest news, issues, and changes happening in the energy sector. Just before Christmas, I took a trip to one of Iceland's top attractions, the Blue Lagoon. You will know this world-famous site from countless travel programs and social media posts, which capture its famous turquoise water. What you might not know is that the blue in the Blue Lagoon is formed by the power plant nearby. Its wastewater mixes with seawater to form a silica-rich lagoon, creating an unmistakable blue colour. Now, on this occasion, I wasn't there to take a selfie or enjoy a dip. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the remarkable story of the upgrade of this geothermal power plant to 85 megawatts. Remarkable because production only paused once during the refit, despite 12 volcanic eruptions over the last couple of years, very close by. Thousands of locals were evacuated, making world headlines, but work at the plant went on, unaffected. Before I sat down with the operator's CEO to explore how they coped under extremely challenging circumstances, I stood outside the power plant's entrance to take in the sights, the sounds, and the smells of this unique site. I'm at the Svartsengi power plant on the Reykjanes Peninsula in southwest Iceland, overlooking the Blue Lagoon, one of Iceland's top tourist attractions. I'm actually standing on top of one of the barriers that prevented both the Blue Lagoon and the power plant from being overrun from lava flows. This area was witness to some of the most dramatic volcanic eruptions seen in Europe in recent years. We saw the evacuation of the nearby town and the constructions of these barriers, on top of which I'm standing, which prevented the plant and the Blue Lagoon from being completely eradicated. Now, let's hear from Tómas Sigurðsson, the CEO of HS Orka, the company that owns and operates the Svartsengi power plant. I'm here in Reykjavik at the offices of HS Orka, and joining me today is Tómas Sigurðsson, the CEO of the company. So a warm welcome to you, Tómas.
Thank you very much.
Tell me a little bit about HS Orka before we go into talking a little bit more about the activity your company's seen in the past few years.
Yeah, sure. HS Orka is a 50-year-old company. Today it's the largest privately held and operated energy producer in Iceland. It started 50 years ago as sort of a utility, a local utility in developing primarily for hot water, for district heating for the area of Reykjanes, which is sort of a 10% population of Iceland lives there, and we have an international airport in that area and a NATO base. So that was its foundation. But we in the beginning they were drilling for hot water and geothermal steam. Pretty quickly started utilizing the steam as well for electrical production. And over the years, we have sort of grown our electrical production profile, built more geothermal power plants. And today, we are also own 2 hydropower plants and manage multiple small hydros across the country.
What's the total capacity of the plants that you operate?
Total capacity of HS Orka is 250 megawatt. Again, electrical generation and about the same hot water production. But we also have a resource park, which has developed over the years, which basically means companies that are directly connected to our geothermal power plants, utilizing the waste steam or brine or any other resource that's come from the geothermal power production. The most famous example is the Blue Lagoon. The Blue Lagoon developed out of HS Orka, and it's an example where the egg has outgrown its hen.
Exactly, or its nest even. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But we also have multiple other companies, such as in aquaculture. There's a big salmon farming development happening near our Reykjanes power plant, $400 million investment, and also utilizing the steam in other companies to dry fish, which is a popular source of protein, particularly in Africa. So it has multiple other sort of offsprings, but our focus is the energy production and hot water production.
Absolutely. And so obviously it's the first introduction that international travelers tourists come to Iceland, they see, either the Blue Lagoon or the steam coming from the Blue Lagoon, and then they will see it when they land probably some of your power plants. Absolutely.
Yeah, they will actually fly over our power plants, most likely when they land in Iceland.
Absolutely. And I was at the Svartsengi power plant just before Christmas, and it's absolutely stunning. It's very striking in terms of the landscape, the lava flows, that you've managed to stop them when these eruptions. Now, I want to go into a little bit of detail there, Tómas, about you're obviously very much impacted by the volcanic activity very close to the power plant. Can you talk me through some of that?
Well, I would say sort of the risk of geothermal utilization, high temperature geothermal utilization, which is Iceland is, of course, on the boundaries of two tectonic plates, North Atlantic plates and the Eurasian plate, and they are growing in each direction every year. And magma comes up underneath. So we have our fair share of volcanic eruptions in country, and we are utilizing the steam, generated by this magma. And that's sort of the occupational hazard, is that we might have an eruption not far away from power plants. That does not happen often. It hasn't happened for 50 years and never happened to us. But now, over the last 3 years, we've had 12 volcanic eruptions, 12 eruptions close to the plant. 3 a bit further out, like 7 kilometers away, but 9 quite close to the plant.
How close did the lava get, for example?
The lava, actually, the government built embankments or barriers, lava barriers, which you saw, to protect the plant. So we would be under lava today had that not been done. So the fissure where it erupted from was maybe 3 kilometers away from us, but the lava flow reached the plant and bypassed the plant. But the barriers sort of secured it, that it went, past the plant and to different areas. So that happened for those 9 eruptions that happened close to us. 3 of those lava flows came quite close to the plant, so maybe just within a few hundred meters. But all our boreholes, we drill 2 to 3 kilometers into the ground to collect steam and fluid under pressure to generate the electricity. All the boreholes were safe, and all our infrastructure, equipment, power plants were safe. So no people got injured. So we were safe from that, but obviously during eruptions we had a scare from lava flow coming close to the plants, cutting off roads, pollution coming over the power plant, not
poisonous gases, you mean, gases,
stuff like that. So there were a bunch of interruptions. So during this period, we were actually constructing a new power plant inside Svartsengi, which you saw probably.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
A new 50 megawatt turbine.
It was not just you, sorry to interrupt there, Tómas, but not just were you keeping the plant operational, you're actually building a new power plant there itself, which came online, in November? Or?
Yeah, end of November. And we were, being a 50-year-old site, Svartsengi is the foundation of our company. There were a lot of older power plant, older equipment, which were obsolete. So we were decommissioning those and inserting a bigger power plant instead, or bigger turbine. And that was ongoing when this happened. And all in all, due to eruptions, I think we had over 4 months of interruptions, if we combine everything, due to lava flows and pollutions and things like that. So, but still, with some interesting and good, insightful strategies, assembling equipment and things off-site and things like that, we managed to catch up and deliver it on time. So that was quite astonishing.
And I heard also under budget, or?
Yes, it was.
That's stunning. I think, elsewhere in Europe, that doesn't happen very often with these big projects, but maybe there's different size. But this is about 55 megawatt, is it?
Yeah, turbine is 55. It's going to generate, to begin with, somewhere around 25. We need to drill more holes to get it up to the extra, 30. That's the capacity it has. But we are decommissioning, we decommission probably 15 megawatts worth of generation capacity, and we get an extra 15 to 20 with this new one, just using the same new equipment, using the same steam. So all in all, it brings the plant up to 85 megawatts. It was, in 60 before.
Okay, so that's quite a big upgrade. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Big upgrade just with the, new equipment.
And while this volcanic activity was ongoing, did you cut the power supply or the district heating supply at all?
For one, the power supply, one of the lava flows actually took down power lines. So power supplies was off, power generation was off for a week. That was because of the distributor, Landsnet. Their power line went off, and they had already built barriers around the masts, but the lines themselves melted. So that was. But they managed to reconnect us in a week, and then we had for 3 days interruption of delivering hot water to the community, which was quite a scary situation because it was in the middle of January winter. It was minus 15 degrees Celsius, outside. We heat our houses with hot water from that power plant. So during the course of 2.5 to 3 days, we were just rewelding, new pipes, building, it was a massive undertaking, and got connected again, and nothing really, no big injury, no big damages to homes, which we were trying to protect, homes and companies, of course, in the whole area. We, of course, had our fair share of, the pipe burst and stuff like that, but all in all, I would say surprisingly little damages both to our plant and to any other, facilities in the area.
And it's quite eerie when you drive through Grindavik now, because it's mostly it's the people were forced to evacuate. It's almost like a sort of ghost town, isn't it? I mean, it's and you can see some of the damage that has been done by the lava. I mean, it's very, very striking, especially the lava over the roads.
And one of them, when we talk about eruptions, what triggered all these activities was a massive earthquake. And basically, Grindavik, the town of Grindavik, basically a fissure ruptured open right underneath and through the town. So, the sports facility just had a big, deep fissure going through it. And, so some of the houses are just risky because of that, because there's big void underneath. But having said that, I think the authorities have done a great job, trying to secure the area. There is more and more activities happening there. The companies are back because this is a very active fishing area. This is the shortest, basically, distance to the most fertile cod, grounds outside of Iceland. So fishing is starting to grow again. I think now like 20% of people are moving back, and just recently spoke to the mayor, and they're hoping that they can bring the schools up, hopefully being able to receive people again in the community and grow it again, because it's one of the foundation, old Icelandic communities.
Absolutely, it's a very important town. What about the Blue Lagoon? Was that?
Yeah, they had to shut down a few days as well. I think that they showed exceptional resilience in my view as well. Because they run a hotel. They have 1,000 people there. In the Blue Lagoon, and they had evacuation plans and things like that, and had to evacuate, and we were shut down many times. Especially early on, the first eruptions. Understandably, people were more nervous. Now, it's we pretty much know where the lava will come up. We know how it will, what's safe and what's not. But in the beginning, they had to shut down the operation for months. But now the latest eruption came, and I think they shut down for like 36 hours and then opened again.
I mean, that's incredible. It just does that, And the Bruggen, just to reiterate, you mentioned it earlier on, Tómas, but it's formed by the wastewater from the Svartsengi power plant.
It's a brine. When we drill into the ground, we collect brine under a lot of pressure. Geothermal brine and steam, and the brine.
So it's seawater, is it, or just?
It is seawater. Yeah, it's very rich in salts and minerals and silica, and that's what they utilize and have turned into. It has proven health benefits, and and that's what we bathe in when we go there. And I regularly go there. I like it.
No, I'm going there in a few days, but I was there in the early '80s when it looked very different from what it does now.
Well, it did. There were some really smart people that sort of spotted the health benefits and started developing this area as a tourist site. And in today, I think it's yes, we were critical for building the barriers because we were supplying the entire community with hot water and electricity. But every other tourist visits Blue Lagoon. So for a country that has over 2 million tourists a year, this is an important. We're a small country. This is an important infrastructure for tourism. So there was also a good justification for protecting the area.
Absolutely, and it's stunning how close it is. It's hard to imagine how it's just a few hundred meters away from when the barriers and the lava flows. I mean, it's quite remarkable. Is there still volcanic activity going on? Are you expecting maybe more eruptions, and could they have a kind of impact on the infrastructure, the power plants, and And
so one of the things that we know more and more, there are a lot of measurements happening in the area about the lava intrusion below us, and that's slowing down. It was almost to a point they could estimate early on when the eruption would happen, because the ground was rising right underneath. My office, for example, was like 30 centimeters higher at in few instances, and then it erupted, and the elevation of the area, the plant and everything went down by 30 centimeters up and down. Now it's much slower, and there's more space for the lava to go into fissures and things like that. But the intrusion from way deep into the magma chamber is much slower now. We might see an eruption somewhere end of February, beginning of March, according to the scientists, but this might also be the end. I said that also last summer, and then there was an eruption in July. But since then, we haven't had any, and I'm pretty confident that, if this happens again, it's going to be, smaller and further away, and our embankments are going to be able to withhold all lava flows.
I mean, it's no nonchalance or something. You know what to expect, and you're fully aware of all the dangers as well. Yeah.
And also, when you build a geothermal power plant in a high temperature zone like ours, you can expect this. There are a lot of geothermal opportunities across Europe, for example, and they will not have this risk. You might have it in Italy, in Turkey, maybe in the Canary Islands, where you have volcanic activities, active volcanoes, but not sort of normally.
Not 100 meters or so away from the plants. I mean, that's quite stunning. I think let's talk a little bit about the Icelandic power market. You said your company is 100% privately owned, one of the only ones in Iceland. What's happening in the Icelandic power market, Tómas? I mean, it's obviously a small country. It's isolated. It's not interconnected with any of its neighbors, but there are things happening here, are there not?
Yeah, there are things happening, and we're a small nation, and we would never have afforded to build up over the decades our grid and our power stations if it wasn't for big users. So Icelandic power infrastructure grew by servicing aluminum smelters. We have 3 in Iceland. We, meaning Iceland, have 3 power, large aluminum smelters. There's a ferrosilicon plant. There were silicon plants. There are, and now so all of these industries use maybe 80% of our power. Over the past nearly 8 years, the data center industry has been growing quite a bit, and it's obviously with all the discussion about hyperscalers and all that in data centers, the demand is really strong from the data centers, and so the demand is there, but at the same time there haven't been many new projects over the last nearly 20 years, 18 years. The last big one was built for an Alcoa aluminum smelter in East Iceland, where I was the CEO 18 years ago, so I know it intimately, but that was like a 600 megawatt power plant.
I visited it.
Yeah. Kárahnjúkar. But, after that, there was sort of I would say, we had our economic collapse. Economy wasn't ready for more, big projects. And then, following that, the government was very much, subsequent governments were very much sort of green, left-leaning. And the focus was not on developing further the energy industry. I think we have a change. We've had a change over the last few years. We have built, now this is the second geothermal power station we commissioned in 4 years. So we've built 2, they're not big, 30 and 30 to 50 megawatt scale, but they're still, those are the newest projects in the country. I think there are 4 data centers in the country. They all want to grow, and they all have opportunities to grow with, one of the hyperscalers. So I'm confident that there will be more increased demand. I'm promoting on our end, we should move away more and more from fossil fuel-driven economy to an electrical-driven economy as a country. We do have the resource. We just need to deploy projects and take strategic decisions. There's no reason why we shouldn't all be driving electrical cars. You shouldn't have a strong electrical infrastructure around the country. Why small boats shouldn't be electrically driven? It's technically possible. That would save, the country on importing fossil fuels, and we could be a prime example of how you drive an economy based on electrically powered, infrastructure.
Yeah. Though Iceland isn't connected with its neighbours through cables. There is a strong competition in attracting, you mentioned the big industrial companies and also data centres. So that's where Iceland can compete with, say, Norway, Sweden, and Finland in terms of the price of electricity. Is Iceland remains competitive? Would you say?
I think there's been a lot of discussion over the last 2 decades about an interconnection, basically electrical cable to the UK, which is massively expensive, something in the order of magnitude of 5 or 6 billion euros. My view is that we don't need it anymore because we have the data cables. We have a bunch of opportunities growing the data centers, and the prices are competitive, but they're still really good. The data centers' ability to pay is higher than the old industry, even if we like that industry as well. So a good, healthy mix is good. But I think with the AI boom and everything that's going on in the data center industry, we have had opportunity to basically get more value for our power and develop projects. And we can now develop projects which probably would not have been economical for the aluminum industry or silicon industry because they need low prices. And we have probably developed most of the cheap projects, but the new projects, for servicing the data industry, they are more expensive, but the customer can pay for that. So I think our prices are still competitive globally. But there's also good, for us because we want our power companies, and especially because they're state-owned. The government relies on the dividends from them. So I think this is all in all positive for the economy and positive for the way the government wants to move.
So if that's demand side, what about the supply side? If you can you get more supply on stream? You said that you've struggled over the last 20 years to build new supply. I mean, Iceland is notoriously windy, Tómas, but is that something?
I can tell you, we have a few wind sites, and we've been doing wind measurements where exactly we would set world records on land here if we developed wind, and I'm all for it. I don't believe we should be doing it all over the country, but I think strategic locations and we do have, and then when I say we, I mean Iceland. I'm not meaning Orka. Our primary Orka power production is baseload because we have geothermal. But the country has a bunch of good reservoir, installed capacity and opportunities. And I think we should develop those. And I think we could have massive opportunities on wind, onshore,
and co-locate with batteries or something. So that there's very few occasions where it's not windy in Iceland. So maybe
Fortunately, that's. So that's for us living here, it's always windy, so I think we have great opportunities. Yeah.
And how about in terms of how's the market organized in Iceland? There's a wholesale market? I heard there's also competing power exchanges. Could you run me through that, Tómas?
Yeah, well, there's a wholesale market, and there are big, like I said, few big consumers, industrial consumers, and then there's for the SME companies, size companies, and what we call SME in here because that's an active market for those, retail market for those, and an active market, many players selling into households and small companies and mid-sized companies. Our fishing industry is largely capable, on land, the fishing factories and things like that are largely capable in freezing plants of utilizing electricity. And they are becoming very big, as an industry. And it's an active market, but I would always criticize it because it's such a big part of it is owned by the government or municipalities. So it's biased towards that, and it's not in my political beliefs, but I know the country doesn't want to change from that because the politicians like the fact that these utilities are owned by the state or the municipalities, and they want to be reap the benefits because this is a good industry.
Yeah, that's a policy I think that's shared by other Nordic countries as well. When it's a matter of national resources, we want to maintain that kind of control.
I think in our case we do have an example from the fishing industry where the fishing rights are mostly, all of them are more or less privately held. I think that has been very successful in terms of generating a sustainable fishing industry. But I believe that the power industry, because of the fishing industry, will be public, owned by public companies, whereas we have been allowed to play, in 10% or so, 7 to 10% of generation privately, and that's fine. We're owned by the pension funds mostly, so So every Icelander owns us indirectly. But I think when we spoke about few projects in the past, we have implemented rules and regulations that have been are simply been too cumbersome to get the project from the drawing board to execution. Has just taken years and years and years. And recent governments want to change that. And I know with the new government, they have much focus, put a lot of emphasis on simplifying the regulations, the national framework plan, the environmental impact assessment, operating permit, planning permissions, building permissions. This has taken up to 20 years sometimes. It's long and it's man-made. I'm not promoting to give a discount on environmental, regulation. Just make them quick. Either
expedite them, accelerate.
Just give me a red light immediately if it's a red light. Not let me be stuck on a yellow light for 20 years. That I don't know what to do.
Absolutely, that's crucial. And if we can stay with regulation, Tómas, what's the relationship with Europe or with the European Economic Area? I mean, there was a little bit of trouble a few years ago with the third energy package that took a while to get through. What's the status now in the relationship with Brussels and with the?
In principle, we implement everything that EU implements, and we have done energy. The first and second and third energy package has been implemented. Total separation of generation and sales, and distribution, and is always separated from generation and sales. So I think we have implemented all of it. We talk about gold plating a lot in Iceland because we tend to implement it to the highest possible standard. And be proud of it, even to a point where we have started talking about lead plating because it's so heavy. So if you want to implement or develop a wastewater cleaning facility for a municipality of 2,000 or 3,000 people, they will have to go through the same regulation as Frankfurt. We had to simplify those things because we have just different environment and the ability to file a complaint and stall projects and put those projects to court. We have allowed broad definition of that. That's why projects have been stuck for 20 years. Best example is the power line. I told you about the power line. We had only one single power line to Svartsengi, which melted. There has been a power line in development for 20 years to secure, delivery from that power plant, second power line. And it's still being held at the courts because of landowner disputes and things like that. So, I think we have basically the same We've implemented everything that the EU has implemented up to the third energy package, and we have tended to go to sort of literal when we implement these rules and regulations, and I think present government is actually trying to change that.
I think there are governments across Europe as well that are trying to expedite the process and overrule some of the local opposition to especially these infrastructure products because as you say these can become just a bureaucratic nightmare with the one NIMBY versus another NIMBY and certain local councils in opposition. But a final question, really, Tómas. I mean, I'm sure you're involved in the guarantees of origin markets, HS Orka. What do you make of the kind of plans on the table by the greenhouse gas protocol? Have you had a look at that at all? And because that would stop the sale of guarantees of origin outside of Iceland effectively, because you'd have to prove you'd either sell it within the same price zone or if there's an interconnection with another one.
Yeah, I don't pretend to be an expert on this. But personally, I think by doing that, it defies the purpose of a single market. And I think we have sold geos, and we have used that partly to fund our growth of green, sustainable projects. And that's the whole purpose. And we're in the same single market. So that's why I think these latest moves are wrong, totally wrong, because we are exactly, and we are probably a poster child of what we should be doing with the benefits of the green origin. You should be reinvesting into new green projects. And we have built 3 new green power plants in the last 6 years. Yes, we have some revenue from the geos. It's not massive, but it's part of the funding of a new green project. And now we have great, 200 megawatt geothermal power plant, which we have already started exploratory drilling on. That's totally green. We have an expansion opportunity in Svartsengi, totally green, more geothermal because we have space basically for more generation. And we have a hydro project in the north, 55 megawatts, totally green. And I think geos, benefits from the geos should go into developing more green energy in a single market. We're competing for data centers. We're competing for industrial, facilities. Land-based salmon farming uses a lot of energy. That's just a green source of protein. So I think if I understand the move correctly, I think it's wrong. I think it defies the purpose of a single market, And apologize if my English isn't perfect, but to describe it. But I think we have been using the market in the right way. We're basically getting the benefits of developing or having a green pipeline, developing new projects, and that's what we're doing.
I think your opinions will be shared by many power companies across the Nordic region, at least. Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope so.
Tómas, thank you very much indeed for being a guest on the Plugged In.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And you listeners, thanks for listening to this episode of Plugged In. If you enjoyed this discussion, please like, rate, and follow to make sure you get the latest podcast episodes as soon as we release them every Friday. We'd also love to read your reviews of the podcast. It helps us to keep up to date with what you, our listeners, think of our podcast and what content you want to receive more of. Finally, you can head to montelnews.com for more news and analysis from our team of journalists across Europe and beyond. See you next time.